The afternoon sun poured through the glass walls of the luxurious Vista Crest Resort, turning every polished surface into a blinding display of wealth. But none of that light touched the heart of Arman Qureshi, a single father working 2 shifts with a tired smile and shoes worn thin. He had learned to move quickly, silently, and invisibly, weaving between tables, carrying trays heavier than his own problems. But that day, fate chose to drag him out of the shadows and throw him into the center of a storm he never asked for. It began with a single shove, hard, humiliating, and witnessed by dozens, and within seconds the man who shoved him would regret underestimating the quiet waiter with tired eyes and a fighter's past burned into his bones. If you believe in kindness, dignity, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Everyday Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Arman had arrived that morning exhausted but determined. His daughter, little Sana, had woken up coughing again. She was 7, bright as a sunrise, but weaker than most children her age. The doctor had said she needed better nutrition and some tests, things far beyond Arman's means. So he worked extra shifts, taking overtime whenever possible, never complaining because the thought of Sana's smile gave him strength. As he walked into the shining lobby, the world of wealthy guests felt like another planet. Expensive perfumes blended with the scent of fresh flowers, paintings worth more than his yearly salary lined the walls, and soft classical music hummed like a reminder that this place belonged to the elite. But Arman was not intimidated. He had survived darker worlds, ones filled with bruises, sweat, and discipline. He had once trained in martial arts so intense that even his instructors had whispered about his potential. But that life, full of medals and trophies, had ended the day he became a father and needed stable income instead of adrenaline. No one at the resort knew who he used to be, and he preferred it that way. The trouble began when the resort hosted a private brunch for a wealthy businessman, Zayden Ellingford, known for his ruthless reputation. Tall, expensively dressed, and used to people bending around him like he was carved from a higher material, Zayden walked with the arrogance of someone who believed money granted him a different level of humanity. Arman had been assigned to serve his table. He immediately sensed the tension among the staff. They whispered that Zayden was unpredictable and temperamental, but Arman simply bowed his head and got to work. The resort gardens stretched like a dream under the daylight, with fountains catching sunlight like scattered diamonds. Guests strolled around, enjoying the gentle breeze. Arman carried a tray of fresh juices and fruit, carefully balancing the glasses as he approached Zayden's table. But just as he reached it, a sudden gust of wind caught the edge of a napkin. It fluttered, knocking a juice glass slightly off balance. Arman steadied it, but a single drop splashed onto the polished marble. It didn't touch Zayden. It didn't even touch the tablecloth, yet it was enough to trigger an explosion. Before Arman could apologize, Zayden rose, glared at him with disgust, and kicked him sharply in the leg as if he were an unwanted animal in his path. Arman stumbled, the tray slipping from his hands and crashing onto the ground, juices splattering across the tiles like spilled sunlight. Conversations around them froze. Staff gasped. Guests turned. The world seemed to hold its breath. Zayden sneered, towering over him, treating him as though he were invisible, worthless beneath even anger. Arman swallowed hard, pain shooting up his leg, humiliation burning hotter than the sun. But he lowered his gaze, trying to breathe through the storm inside him. He had promised himself never to reveal that old side of him, the fighter, the striker, the man who could break bones with precision. Violence had no place in the life he wanted for Sana. And yet the universe had a strange way of testing those who tried to stay gentle. As he tried to stand, Zayden shoved him again. This time Arman fell backward, hitting the ground with a thud. Laughter rippled across nearby tables. People watched, not with concern, but with morbid curiosity. In that moment, Arman wasn't just a waiter. He was entertainment. His chest tightened, not from the fall, but from the weight of all the battles he'd fought alone. Poverty, loneliness, exhaustion. He felt something crack inside him, not his bones, but his patience. Then something unexpected happened. A voice cut through the air, not a shout, but a small, frightened call. Sana, who had been sitting quietly near the staff station waiting for her father to finish, had seen everything. Her face crumpled, tears filling her eyes as she rushed toward him. Arman's heart shattered at the sight. She clung to him with trembling hands, whispering his name through sobs that pierced the garden like lightning. The guests who had laughed now looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Even the wind felt ashamed. Zayden blinked, taken off guard. He hadn't expected an audience, much less a child. His expression wavered between annoyance and embarrassment, but instead of apologizing, he scoffed and waved a dismissive hand as if brushing away dust. Something inside Arman woke up. It wasn't rage, it wasn't revenge. It was protection. A father's instinct, quiet but unstoppable. He stood slowly, gently placing Sana behind him, and lifted his gaze for the first time, steady, calm, and unblinking. The same gaze he once gave opponents in the ring. Zayden felt an unfamiliar chill slide down his spine. The air around Arman had changed. His shoulders squared, his breathing deepened. His posture shifted from that of a tired waiter to someone far more controlled, powerful, disciplined. But Arman didn't attack. He didn't shout. He simply stepped forward, picked up the shattered glass pieces with steady hands, cleaned the spill, and prepared to walk away. His silence unsettled everyone more than an argument ever could. Zayden, needing to reassert his dominance, reached out and grabbed Arman's shoulder roughly. That was his mistake. In a single motion, Arman flipped his wrist, twisted his balance, and redirected his force, not with aggression, but with pure technique. Zayden stumbled forward, landing flat on the ground with a shocked gasp. It happened so fast that no one understood what they had seen. Arman hadn't punched him. He hadn't kicked him. He had simply moved like water, smooth, precise, unstoppable. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Guests stood, hands over their mouths. Phones lifted instantly to record. Zayden tried to rise, furious, but when he lunged again, Arman merely stepped aside, guiding him off balance and sending him forward with effortless control. It was not violence. It was pure mastery. A silent message. Respect isn't requested. It's commanded. Security rushed in, not to stop Arman, but to hold back the enraged millionaire who had clearly instigated everything. Arman's manager arrived moments later, flustered and terrified, apologizing profusely to the guests. But then, the unexpected happened. Several guests stepped forward, people who had watched the entire scene, and defended Arman. They explained how Zayden had assaulted him first, how Arman had stayed calm, how he had protected his daughter, and how his restraint had been remarkable. For the first time, the truth outweighed the money. An elderly woman, graceful and wealthy, approached Arman with soft eyes. She took his hand gently and pressed something into his palm. A gold business card. She had connections in medical foundations, she said. She wanted to help his daughter. The tests he couldn't afford would now be fully covered. Sana clung to her father's leg, still shaken, but now looking up with hope. Zayden, red-faced and struggling to save face, tried to shout at security, but his voice sounded hollow. No one sided with him. Even his business associates backed away slowly, unwilling to be associated with what had just transpired. His power had evaporated in the same sunlight that made his expensive watch gleam. All because he had underestimated the man he thought was beneath him. Arman didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel victorious. He felt steady, grounded, proud that he hadn't lost control, proud that he had defended himself without violence, proud that Sana had seen her father stand strong with dignity, not aggression. The resort later apologized formally. Several guests tipped him generously. Many shook his hand. And as Arman walked home under the warm daylight, Sana resting sleepily on his shoulder, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. The world, usually cruel, had shown a glimpse of fairness. Maybe not perfect fairness, but enough to remind him that kindness and strength could coexist. Weeks passed, and Sana received her medical tests and treatment thanks to the elderly woman's foundation. Her health began improving steadily. Arman's story quietly spread across the city, inspiring people who had faced similar humiliations and reminding them that dignity doesn't depend on wealth, it depends on character. As he stood outside in the glowing afternoon sunlight one day, watching Sana run with more energy than ever before, he felt tears prick his eyes. Life was far from perfect, but they were moving in a better direction. A direction earned through patience, resilience, and unshakable love. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Everyday Kindness so more people can feel inspired. Special request, comment, respect and kindness matter if you believe every person deserves dignity. And in that moment, Arman realized that sometimes the loudest victories come not from fists, but from the quiet strength of staying true to who you are, even when the world tries to break you.